Again, we're recording. I will call to order this Pemberton Valley Utility Services meeting for May 11th. And we would like to recognize that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Lewa Nation. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, move is presented. Director Mack, seconded by Director Kent. Any opposed? Motion carries. We don't have a closed motion. So we're going to skip all the way up to 5. We have a delegation and the chairperson for the Spud Valley Nordic Association. Dolores, please approach the table.
Do I get to sit here or should I
You
stand?
sure do. Yeah, wherever you're
Stand or perform?
You don't have to perform.
No. Okay, well, thank you for having me come here. So on behalf of the Spud Valley Nordic Association, I would like to thank all of you for the PVUS grant that we received for the 2022-2023 ski season. And with that, first of all, I just noticed on the screen earlier on, I know what PVUS stands for now. I should have known that before, but anyway, so with the $7,000 grant, our club was able to subsidize the registration for our club kids who joined the Track Attack Corridor race team. And that was really important to us because it was the first year that we had that program, the race team, and it was a program that we coordinate. We went in with Whistler and Nordics. So each club contributed the same amount to the paid coach that was hired to coach that team. And Spud Valley Nordics had 7 children on a team, and Whistler Nordics had 2. So, but the price was very high because we had a good coach. And for our club events for the last 38 years, we have all volunteer coaches and volunteers. So we can keep the fees for our regular programs quite low. But this fee had to be quite high. It was actually going to cost $750 per child for this season. And I thought that would discourage some people from being a part of it. So we were able to subsidize, and with the grant, we were able to subsidize $450 per child for that program. And in addition to that, we also use the money to pay for all the race fees for all the children in Spud Valley Nordics who took part in any races throughout the province. And the race team, of course, took part in many more races than they normally would because they're part of that race team. So the kids took part in at least 25 kids. I checked it out, and at least 25 children from our club took part in races both locally, like Squamish-Lillooet and Spud, and the races at Whistler Olympic Park, plus races throughout the province. We had children go to Salmon Arm for races, Revelstoke, Kelowna, Mount Washington. So many children took part in many races. And again, thanks to the grant. Trying to think, but let's see. Actually the grant helped us pay, as I said, not only for the subsidy, but the race fees. And we actually paid $1,272 per race fees. So that tells you that there were a lot of children involved in a lot of races this year, which is really fantastic. And now, because of that program, some of the children are so keen on continuing on racing that some are training year round. And these are young children. They had to be 10, 9 turning 10 to go into the program. So they're between 10 and 13. And we've just had 2 children from that group from Spud Valley come back from a training camp at Mount Washington that just ended. And in addition to that, at the races they attend, they get points for how well they do in the race with their position in the races. And because of, again, all the races people that attended, and because of the race team, one of our girls, Naomi Lemons, she was selected for the entry-level BC team called the Town Squad. So she's now a part of that and will train with the BC team for that. So all of those things really are possible because of the PVUS grant. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It was very good, and everybody really enjoyed it. And the thing we liked the most is, I guess I can say this, there were 7 of our club and only 2 Whistler on the team. Is there anybody from Whistler?
Maybe.
No, it's interesting. So it really, you know, it really did appeal to, we do have children who really want to go on and do things, and we were able to do that because of the grant. So if you have any questions, I can give you more details. Yes.
I just have a comment. I love the picture of the kids, all kind of, you know, very casual picture. And then all of them, the other picture with the, in their bibs and everything in a actual race, and thought that was really good. And all the kids look like so happy in that casual picture, you know, it's really,
Well, that's really interesting because
well, we're supporting you for sure.
thank you. It's really interesting to see, because that's actually one of the goals of our program, and has been for so many years, is so it's fun. And if anybody were to come to Nairn Falls on a Monday when we have the program, you probably wouldn't think the kids are learning anything, because they're just having so much fun. But that's how we keep people in the program, and that's how they gain experience, and that's how they learn. But and that's the you know, the coaches make sure that happens. So they do just have really a lot of fun. So that's good observation.
Any other questions?
No, it's good.
All right, thanks, Dolores. Thanks
Okay.
as always. Pleasure to see you, and thanks for the small party.
Okay. I didn't attend it. I didn't get any points for any races. I won this year. I'll have to train harder for next year.
Okay, well, you know, off season.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on to item number 6, which is the consent agenda. We're pointing out. It's presented. Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising? And then we are on 8.1 SLRD CAO verbal update.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Ms. Clark for reminding me to advise the committee of this. Just to remind the committee that there's an alternate approval process that's been initiated to seek electoral support for the next and latest step in the transfer of recreation services from the SLRD to the village. So that process is underway now, and it closes on the 12th of June. If you meet anybody who has questions, or if you have any questions, I'd actually refer you to our website and the documentation there, because it can be a little bit of a challenging issue to make sense of. But that would be the best place to get an update and to seek to understand what's involved in that process.
So, any questions on that? Proceed, please. Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. The UOP CAO verbal update. Tracy.
Sure. Thank you through the chair. Thank you to CAO Dalton for a little bit of the explanation around the AAP process and the support of the SLRG team in shepherding that. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so we're on 8.4 PDIF funding reports.
You put 8.3.
Oh, geez, sorry. I didn't have it circled. Put 8.3 all the way at the end. Sorry, Christine. 8.3 information for rec services manager first quarter.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. It's really nice to see you today. As you're aware, we do regular updates. So this would just be an update on how first quarter of 2023 went. I think it's very worth noting that this was the very first quarter since COVID shut us down in March of 2020, where we did not have any public health orders in place. So there are some significant shifts from first quarter of 2022 to first quarter of 2023. And that's just that's us back to normal. So that would be what I would like to premise everything with. We've started to add more programming to the facility. So there's family open gym, we've got taught soccer. We started a few other early years type programming in other areas as well to see how those things take off. We saw more than double the participation in fitness programs in first quarter of 2023. And I thought our fitness participation in 2022 was actually really good, even though we didn't really start back up until the end of January of 2022. So that's pretty impressive. Seniors programming, I think, is full steam ahead. We're seeing more seniors come back into the facility. There's more programs than we had prior to COVID as well. Great attendance at special events. I think youth programming is the one area where we're still somewhat not seeing a return to use of youth activities, but we're seeing good attendance as well as the great attendance at the special events we've been offering. Adult drop-in sports was in full swing for first quarter of 2023. Fitness center use was quite significant. We were 10,816 unique visits in the first quarter of 2023, which is really significant. That number is very well, it's indicative of how busy we are for sure. So we're feeling it. Membership sales increased across the board quite significantly as well. Almost double, not quite, but almost. Facility use, I think we aren't far off of our max of hours of availability. We have very little space available. We had very little space available to accommodate users' needs unless they were willing to be flexible on their time in which they wanted to use space when it was available and things like that. So that's promising as well. And we are pushing more to the rec and the youth center from a booking perspective as well, as a result of the main facility being busy. Outdoor use is fairly low in the first quarter, obviously. I think we had a few things happening out at the barn, and that would be about it. Facility maintenance, this was our time to do all of the preventative maintenance and get up to date on all of those sorts of things. Our facility maintenance coordinator, Jeff Milliken, spent a fair bit of time assisting and doing grant applications, hydro regreening grants and a few other grants that we did a bunch of research on and then didn't actually pull the trigger on applying for various operational reasons. And then as well as we did the guiding lights on February 22nd, where we lit up a tree in blue in honor of Girl Guides across Canada. In case anyone wants to know, February 22nd is Thinking Day. It is the birthday of Lord and Lady Baden Powell, who started Girl Guides and Boy Scouts. Just so everybody knows. We've got multiple projects on the go. We've coordinated the surface for the basketball court. We got the basketball nets up. We started to see kids using it in the first quarter because we had a bit of a deep thaw, I think, in February, and then it snowed again. So there's that going on. The head librarian and I are working towards increasing accessibility in the building. And then, of course, we've got aspects of Denduff Park moving forward as well. We did, for the first time since I started in 2020, we started on staff development. So staff was able to participate in training courses. They've gone to some conferences, and I'm really excited about that. So we're working on building staff capacity through training again, which is awesome. Also spent a fair bit of time on the daycare project, Nature Playscape Relocation Engagement Plan. You can see in the appendices A and B, the engagement plan, as well as the survey questions. I'm very grateful to Kristen Clark for identifying a couple of areas that were missed prior to the survey going out to recognize area C in the survey as well. So that was able to happen. And then realistically, it's been a pretty busy first quarter. And we're pretty pleased with where we're at, and we hope that we see more repeat as we go forward. If you have any questions, please do ask.
Any questions? One?
This isn't necessarily a question, Christine, but thank you. It sounds like it's been very busy. I was just talking to some moms out in the Birkin area a little while ago. And they were wondering if it would be possible to have more programming sort of aimed at sort of boys, more, I think they felt that it was heavy towards girls' activities at the center. But she was just saying, I was just wondering what the chances of getting maybe a spring baseball program going or whatever. Is that really difficult to find coaching and that sort of thing for kids, you know, after school? And another comment that I was just want to give you the feedback is that it's really difficult for a lot of folks rurally to get their kids in time after school or whatever to get them to the activities. And if there could be some maybe late afternoon programming or something like that. I don't know, just some feedback from our rural residents.
Excellent. I'll take that into consideration for sure. I think we do have a couple of after-school programs currently that are heavily, if we're going to say gender-specific oriented, they're heavy male-dominated. As far as the kids' fitness class, as well as the kickboxing class, they're, I would say 90% male attendance in those two programs that are offered through one of our contract fitness instructors. However, we can always look at those things. There is a bit of a science behind why we offer girl-only programming, because it is definitely, there's a definite science behind it, because boys don't tend to drop off on their participation in recreation and sport programming. Girls definitely do when they get to that pre-teen age of about 10, 11, start dropping off of sports and recreation because of they would like gender neutral programming. So there is a little bit of a science behind why you see that from an advertising perspective, but we definitely have boys in mind for sure when we're programming. And then just a question through the chair back. When you say late afternoon programming, do you mean programming right after school or programming after activities after school that are already happening?
I'm not sure if there's any evening programming or if that is a staffing issue as it is everywhere, I guess.
Yeah,
But I guess it's just for people that are living, say, a half hour to a 45-minute from town to get their kids into anything. It's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I can take that into consideration for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts? Good. Thank you for your report, much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Negative motion to receive, please. Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennedy. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now we can go to Ms. Campbell, PDIF funding.
Thank you, through the chair, thank you very much. Philippa Campbell, project and research coordinator for the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. I help to administer the PDIF fund. This report is going before you as written. You've just seen Dolores has come and made her presentation, and we're just looking to Bill to ask the committee to accept the letter that she wrote as part of her reporting requirements for this year's fund. That is all for this report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Let's make the motion. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennedy. Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, I don't know if this is the right place. I'm just looking at the agenda. I know there was a bit of a mix up with the Farmers Market Association in terms of them getting their final reporting in, and therefore they haven't been able to access their funds. Is that
That's correct.
Please?
Sure. So both village staff and myself have been working with the farmers market to get that report in to fulfill the reporting requirements. and we're very close. Unfortunately, circumstances meant we couldn't get it onto this particular report. We don't have it in hand yet. However, have had discussions with the CAO about whether we can release those funds in anticipation of that report coming soon, and happy to get the committee's thoughts on that piece. Appreciating that their programming starts June 2nd, and I believe the next time PVUS meets is in July. This would be this is their final year appointment, I believe, as well, out of the 3 year as well. So happy to take recommendations from the committee on that.
So that would be a motion from the committee to release the funds in advance of their final report. Is that what we're looking for?
It would be in advance of their progress report from last year. They would also have a final report coming as well. That's part of that's the final requirement out of any funding agreement. So that would be anticipated later this year.
Any questions on that, or would someone like to make that motion, perhaps? Director Mack, make that motion, second by Director Kennett. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, much appreciated. So we have a late business item also related to PDIF. And I understand there was some conversation with the EAD. This is regarding, did I miss something? Oh, why do I keep skipping stuff? My apologies, my bad. So on 8.5, PDIF fee waiver request process. Ms. Campbell, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report before you has been developed with village staff again. So I appreciate their time, in particular Ms. Burns, who is also here to happy to speak to any items that might fall under the village jurisdiction. Would you like to sit with me? Sure. Yes, please. So thanks for working. It's great to work together on this. So this is coming before you. There's language in the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District Permanent and District Recreation Service Fees and Charges bylaw, which moves any guests who are looking for a fee waiver or reduction in rental fees. They need to apply through the Permanent District Initiative Fund program. This has come before the committee before, when we've obviously had a couple of quiet years, thanks to COVID. When the Rotary Club came and made a request this year, we determined while that language in the bylaw existed, we don't actually have any process in place through PDIF to manage these requests. So we're sort of looking to align that wording in that bylaw with the Permanent District Initiative Fund based on the recommendation from the committee. So we work with staff to sort of develop a process or workflow for fee waiver requests, appreciating that some parts of fund administration sit with the SLRD, but the recreation centre, that building, that venue and other requirements there are sitting with the village. So we work together on that to sort of make sure we're in alignment. So the workflow considers past processes. It also considered sort of the volume of requests that would come through as well. And we've come up with this suggested recommendation is designed to sort of reduce administrative load on both the applicants and also like on the fund administration itself, and get some of these requests through in a timely manner, while being mindful of the impact on committee time and staff time as well. So that's the kind of parameters that we set when we were looking at making this recommendation. So in very broad strokes, the details being in the report, the thought is to request PVUS through the SLRD board that process to allocate an amount to cover off these fee waiver requests. From each cost centre. We have 2108, which is the Arts, Culture and Recreation cost centre for PDIF, and 2109, which is the Economic Development stream. So we request an amount allocated from each of those, from which staff could handle requests for fee waivers at the staff level, rather than bringing everything through to the committee, as we would normally for the one-time, the long-term and seed funding requests through Permanent District Initiative Fund. The amount that is suggested has been reviewed against the past requests, and we've also had a look at the fund to say, is this something that it can absorb this year? And it looks to be the case. And so if the committee is happy with these recommendations, what we do is go away and draft a policy, just some wording in the policy to give guidance to applicants about, you know, what this process would look like. So questions or anything in detail? Request by the committee.
So this would allow staff pretty much full delegated authority for fee waiver requests across the board.
There are some checks in place. You know, it would, for a start, we have the allocated budget amount, which would have to be approved by committee and the board. So it would have to be within that amount. We've said only up to $1,500. Anything above that would come to PVUS as well. And they still would need to meet a number of requirements, including be eligible for PDIF funding in the first place. So they still have to meet all of the requirements in that policy. They would also need to meet all of the venue requirements. So, you know, where they're permitting, insurance and so on, and Ms. Burns would be the best to speak to that as well. So it's not a free-for-all, but it would move some of that work to staff, appreciating that both organizations have, you know, purchasing policies and so on in place, and, you know, that they would have to be approved by the appropriate level of staff for that.
I guess my question then for you both is, does this approach cut down, I mean, you've already spoken a little bit to it, but do you feel, the one that works in this all the time, do you feel that this is a good step towards cutting down some of that administrative work around this fund that seems to take a lot of your time? Is this a step in that right direction, or is it enough to work in that direction?
It does take out the work to bring it to committee, and also the timing considerations there as well. And so that is a benefit. It's difficult to comment because we haven't seen these requests coming through the fund to date. If we look at the volume of requests that we could get, we could see quite an increase. You know, if this is something that people are, if this is something that is of value, we could see, you know, impact on staff time for sure. So making sure that the wording in the bylaw about the fee waivers is aligned with PDIF it does add to the program. And this is trying to strike the balance between the committee's request that we look at this, bringing this into the fund, and also making sure that we have documentation in place to say, you know, if someone comes and requests, you know, and is looking for this type of funding, that we are, you know, we are meeting both the venue requirements and the report, the sort of documentation that we're required to say, yes, this is what the funding was given for, and it was appropriate. So
Okay. I guess I would just make a broad statement then that I would be very happy to see as you continue to work through this. This is, I think, a really important fund for the community. We see the groups that come here. It's great stuff that gets supported through this fund. It also seems like a heck of a lot of work to manage it. So I am very happy to support any direction that you would bring forward to tighten up the process, to release some of that, be it through delegated authority or whatever suggestions you might have to make that happen. Because it seems like you spend a lot of time, and I think the committee would be happy to support you to make that happen down the road. So whether it's through this, what we're looking at today, or future thoughts, let's go ahead, Director Kennedy.
My question is this transition going to take up a lot of your time too, right? To put this whole process together, right? What's entailed, like, is it going to just give you more staff time involved in putting together the procedure?
I'll speak.
Or the staff that you're working with,
Yeah,
your team.
Maybe I'll speak from my.
That's it.
That's
That's
the
the
team. You're the team.
Team of one.
The team of one. Okay.
No, again, appreciating that the sections of this fall together. So I'll speak, and then Ms. Beth can speak to her side. You know, to go and put to edit the policy which is the next step, which is what I would consider to be a good step to make sure that everything is in alignment. That policy is a guidance document for this fund, and it is helpful to be able to provide that to people to say these are the steps that you need to go through. So that will take some staff time. In terms of requests, we've tried to consider whether that would, we've considered making that as low administration load as possible. Would you like to speak to that transition?
Yeah. Happy to. Thank you, Philippa. I think from an accountability perspective as local government, I do believe it's super important that when we authorize giving a community group monies, that there is a process and a policy in place so that everyone is accountable to the same standards. So I'm super happy to be doing the work with Philippa. And I think that obviously when you're making shifts in policy development, it's heavy on the time front, on the front end, but I do see that it will be less time for staff to administrate after we get through this process. So we have one example right now, and I think that example of that user group is it took up some of Philippa's time on the front end, some of your time on the front end, but now it's just on our end, and it's actually something that is easily managed from a staffing perspective at the community center in order to adhere to what we hope the expectations of the policy will outline. So I think it's Philippa is working very hard to streamline things right now. And I'm very appreciative of the time that she has put towards this. So I think we're moving forward positively.
Can I move option 1? The preferred option? Do you want me to read it?
The Permanent Value Utility Services Committee approved the recommended process for fee waivers as outlined in the report, and that staff returned with a draft of the PDIF fund supporting the changes. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, you guys. Are you going to stay with us for maybe this late business conversation, Ms. Campbell?
Would you like me to say? Yes, I can say.
I need your wisdom on this as well. So there's no additional late business. We have 10.1. Next, we see. And this is a request for funding for the Pemberton District Chamber of Commerce regarding the info center. And as we saw in the letter, they did not get funding for their summer students, or as much funding for the summer students as they normally do. And so I know there was a discussion at the EAD. And you want to fill us in on that?
Yeah, so they were 11,000 and some odd dollars short of the grant they applied for. I think normally they get just over 15,000. And yeah, for some reason, they didn't get the full amount this year. And they have in previous years with seeing no issues. The museum out of the same funding stream got the amount they applied for, right? And so anyways, so for this year, I know Natalie Langman is trying to, she's put in a request to Patrick Wheeler and to Jordan Sturdy, but hasn't heard back. So they need to get this thing going and whatever. So what I said when she phoned me, initially sent me an email for this, but anyways, I just said that yeah, we got to keep this thing going. It's important to our community, and I would be willing to put half of the 11. I think it was 55 and whatever the change is, and if the village would match the other half.
So,
but I didn't put it with here. The RAC will put 5,500 and change in, whether you guys do or not. It's not a stipulation that if, and or,
So two things, I think there was a little bit of confusion in between the different letters from Natalie, so because the letter I had staff include last minute there asking, looks like they're $15,000 short, just for clarity, I guess. And I did have a conversation with MP Weiler, and he said he worked really hard to fight for the funding that we did get, and that there was a reduction in the actual pool of funding. And that other places also got less than they got last year, so didn't feel like there was anything more that can be done from his level. So
Okay, so
that's the sense I
Yeah.
got. He said he would
Okay.
take it away, but he was like, he said he had to fight basically to get the funding we did have.
So I think what,
But let me just make the other comment here, Director Mack. The problem is we don't have a fund at the village, like a PDIF is our sort of fund. We have a
Yeah.
teeny tiny little community enhancement fund, which we do like $200 for gift baskets and the rodeo and stuff like that, but not, there's like.
what about your 2 million that you just got from the province? Can you use a little bit of that?
Not for that, and we're not gonna start pecking away little bits for everything else, but I'm just saying, for me, the PDIF was the place for us to support it. Potentially anyway, because we don't have those kind of community funds sitting around, so I don't know. I also know that they've already received funding from us, and you're not supposed to apply twice. Plus, there's a limit to how much you can ask for one-time funding, so that's why I asked Ms. Campbell to stick around, maybe just help us through what we can and cannot do with the policy. And I assume, bearing in mind that the committee does have the ability to make exceptions within the policy if we chose. Can you help us a little bit with that?
For sure. So the request, the policy for a start, there is wording that says, under extenuating circumstances, PVUS and or the SLID shall have the discretion to waive any of the terms of the policy. So that is in there. The request as it stands, should the committee consider PDI funding for that, it does go against the policy in a number of ways, as you've identified. I mean, organizations that are already receiving funding, the line in the policy is that they are ineligible for funding through PDIF. And the chamber is receiving funding through cost center 2109 to the tune of $27,500 a year on a long-term agreement. So that's the amount that they are already receiving through PDIF. This would be coming in, if I look at it with my PDIF policy hat on, it would be coming in as a one-time agreement. And again, those the maximum disbursement under the policy would be $5,000. So that is another piece. And there are sort of application steps to go through for that, that this is kind of coming in a different way, should it be considered for PDIF. So that's some broad strokes there. I think there may be additional pieces around sort of ongoing operations. This is a one-time request, so it doesn't really fall under that, but there are some fairly major ways in which it does not align with the policy, should the committee be considering PDIF funding.
So that, but boiled down, it doesn't jive with our policy. If under extenuating circumstances, this committee decides to make an exception, we could look at some additional funding through the PDIF, but I just want to be clear that I don't think I can bring it back to council, but I don't see a fund that we would go to. Ms. Tracy, you have anything to offer on that? I don't know that we can go to fund like that. So either we can consider the committee waiving some of the requirements of the policy and making an exception, and looking at another little bit of additional funding through here.
I think it is a rather important function in the community, obviously. I mean, you have thousands of people stopping there looking for directions and then spending money in our area, community. So, yeah, it's with Tourism BC and all this, the amount of money that they put out on advertising, you'd think that they would make sure that those community things are funded, right? It should be, to me anyways, the province tourism is a big, huge money maker in this province, obviously. You would think that they would make sure those centers they're open and funded and staffed. So that when people come through your community, they want to get information, directions, whatever, they can pull in. We have the sandy dump. I mean, it's just, you know, it's a very sort of important function. And like for Mr. Wheeler to say, well, I couldn't come up with $11,000.
His money come out.
No,
It's him.
I understand that, but
Process.
these guys give away hundreds of millions of dollars almost daily, right? So here's a thing that to me is an important function that it is a money generator. So,
So where do we want to go with it?
pardon me?
So where do we want to go with it? Do we want to look at, oh, sorry, Director Ramsden, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I did want to reiterate, I think the work that they do is very important. It's unfortunate that they weren't able to secure funding and while I would say I share your frustrations, Director Mack, I fortunately to the point we can't you know, they've made their decision. If we were to consider providing some funds through PDIF, I don't know if this is a matter of semantics, but I did notice also the language about the tourism center, or sorry, the visitor center, is that it's managed and overseen by the district, by the chamber. So I don't know, that to me, I mean, maybe there's a bit in that language, you know, if we're talking about the fact that they can apply for funding twice. And I don't know also, again, is it possible that we, again, if we are considering it within the line of PDIF, if we say, okay, well, maybe we try to keep it to a limit of 5,000 here and then investigate and see if, you know, between the two governments, if there's other places where we can come up with some of the remaining funding that they're requesting. And I recognize, Director Richmond, your comment about we do, I mean, in the village, as far as I understand, yeah, we do have limited limited funds, but limited sources from where we can draw the funding. So just seeing if we can also consider breaking it up to see if we could be creative so that it's not totally against all aspects of the PDIF funding.
Go ahead.
My comment is from the report I read that there's 20,000 tourists that actually stop physically at that building. And when you think about that, and we're at the crossroads of the interior, and it's important also to the tourism and just the Joffrey Lakes, Lillooet, they're all depending on this little hub as well, you know, for people getting the right directions and having the right staff. And this is a crucial, that little building there does boots on the ground. It's invaluable to tourism in this valley. And I think we need to come up with the funding somehow. So, and in the Chamber's defense, they've always got the funding from the provincial government. You know, as the numbers went up, that used to be the criteria, our numbers went up. So we got more funding for staffing, right? And 20,000 is a pretty significant number, I would think, and they didn't get that funding. And they were counting on it. So it's not that they made a mistake in their application.
You know, they need a certain amount of people to run it.
Mm-hmm.
So to cut back without cutting back hours, you can.
Exactly. So I think we should work really hard to try and come up with some money here for these guys.
Yeah, I think we need to get a fix in for this year, but don't we need to make sure that we're lobbying, or I don't know if it should be the chamber lobbying or if it should be our committee lobbying, you know, the Tourism BC or the, you know, the Lottery Corporation or whoever to fund these people on an annual basis at a proper funding amount, right? So that they're not running around scrambling for $20 here and there. Yeah, it's just,
I mean, we're in a month or two at the regional district here at the board table, we're going to be talking about UBCM ministers' meetings and or resolutions. I don't know if there's a discussion there in terms of to be had about how info centers are being supported. I don't honestly know exactly how it works around the province and.
yeah, is there a standard procedure or?
To them, is it just through the summer student program? You know, I'm not. You know, it seems like a win-win, increase the summer student program, employ students and keep this great service going around the program. But I don't really understand the mechanics of it, so maybe there's a discussion behind it.
Perhaps, yeah, I'm not sure how those, you know, how those functions are supported at the moment.
So, yeah, maybe we need to find out a little bit more about. Can't see hand above your computer.
Sorry, I know. Apologies. It's a little intrusive, the laptop. Sorry, just there was a previous comment about the visitor center, and I reviewed the current agreement with the chamber, and part of their application, that's for the 27,500 that they already receive. $8,000 of that goes to offset the operational cost for the visitor center. The application is very specific that they receive that separate funding for the students, so it is. You know, it's not a double up in the ask there. I just wanted to provide that in terms of what support they were already getting through that, the EIF funding that they have already approved for that business.
So, go ahead.
I think just as a comment, I know that there is under Tourism BC, there is Destination BC, and there might be some funding from Destination BC that we could maybe access. I don't know if it's too late because their budget's probably set in stone, but who knows, right? I don't know the person to get in contact, but I do know that they do come out and work with Tourism Pemberton. So there could be some funding from there.
What we could do is support with whatever amount we feel comfortable through PDIF and or CAC or whatever. Doesn't have to be the full amount, with also the statement that we will support in whatever way possible, whatever application they want to make to Destination BC and or Tourism BC, to see if there are some other funds there. Like, we don't have to here at this table make up the full shortfall. If we can get them partway there, I think that would be really helpful for them, and we could support any other applications or energies that put towards finding other funds. That makes sense. So it's a hard one here. I mean, I forget what when you said we had in the fund left, the business part of the PDIF fund. Do you know what our balance is? I forget that.
Sorry, just give 1 moment to pull it up. I believe it can support the request. We haven't had any additional requests come in this year. Apologies.
We have 47 million. Okay, so we could support, again, it would require a motion from this committee to waive certain requirements within the
So just, this is what they're asking.
15,000, yeah.
So 5,000 as one-time funding from PDIF.
Yeah.
There's the 2343 from the other cost center.
Right.
So then we're looking at a shortfall of 8,200. Director Mack suggested that the funding yesterday wasn't conditional. So that 5,500 that's going to the board at the end of the month.
So that would get them
reflected
within.
there.
Right. So the $2,300 that Kristen is referring to is, remember, we have that recreation, the old fund.
Yeah.
So the extra rounds, and for your time, we had another sort of grants and aid fund through the recreation department, and it's still got $2,300 in it put towards anything. So
if you add all the numbers together, then we have enough.
They'll be short a couple
To get them
grand.
through this year, yeah.
A couple grand, I'm sure they can figure that part out for themselves, but basically, if we set another $5,000 from PDIF. Allocate the 2343 from the Pemberton Recreation Fund. As well as your contribution, then that'll leave them within the 26.
And we just have to figure out how to get them that money.
I'm
Or
sure
get
they can work within-
a secure,
And they can work within their own membership as
Yeah.
well, and
secure means of funding.
yeah. And let's encourage them to look ahead to next year and how we can support next year, so, because we can't do this year over year, we know the fund is gonna get overdrawn again, so.
I think a lot of it depends on what Victoria is doing and what their policies are, and there seems to have been a big shift this year in their tourism funding throughout the province. So I think that's something politically that, you know,
So maybe along those lines, back to
UBCM.
just plant the seed rather than a motion, just that we might want to have a little discussion when we're talking about ministers' meetings, UBCM, to have one around the funding of visitor centers and student. What's the program for student workers? Student employment, summer student program. How that's distributed. No, it's a bit of a, it feels like a bit of a lottery again for the summer student program, and there should be a baseline.
Yeah, it's just,
well, they should,
So,
you know, have. Oh, Pemberton needs this amount, you know, each community has this amount for this reason, right? A baseline, and
so is that
then
working?
communities can.
Yes, yeah, we'll give that some thought before the board considers. Yeah,
Just give me a heads up on.
Yeah.
Yes. So in the meantime, would we like to have a motion to do extenuating circumstance $5,000 one-time only funding from the PDIF commercial fund to the visitor center?
I'll move that.
By Director Max, seconded by Director Kenneth.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Opposed, motion carries. And then a motion to allocate the remaining 2343 from the Pemberton Recreation Fund to the visitor center. Moved by Director Mack, second by Director Kenneth. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then you don't need a motion on the other one, Craig, you just keep that.
yeah, got it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Ms. Kemp. Oh,
I just was wondering if there's gonna be like a letter of communication written to the chamber that this is our decision. that
yeah, I mean,
we've
Ms. Kemp
done.
works with them directly, so maybe, letting them know that some of the other direction we're taking to try to support them, but we should be looking ahead to next year. We can't let them know that what we're doing this year can't happen again next year. We won't have the funds to support it like this next year. And we're happy to support them in any other way towards securing their funding. Is that fair, or would you like to prefer that as a letter from the committee?
That is fair. I think it's fair to sort of start to have that discussion with them, we're always on hand to understand, challenges and where people are, and to look at ways that we can work with them for that fund. I would just ask the question, normally a one-time funding does require an agreement. Do we capture that in our motion? I'm just trying to making sure that we're following that part of the process, or if we're
Waive that, are we throwing full caution to the wind here?
No, we are.
We're not.
Your wording was the normal wording.
Yeah, we don't,
What the
we
motion
can't
was.
say.
Yeah.
What I heard
Yeah.
was the motion is the normal wording we use for one funding, which would include an agreement.
Yeah.
So that might,
Is that
they might
cumbersome, or?
not see their money immediately, I believe is what.
I mean, it still needs to go to the board.
Right.
Regardless, and we can work to, there's no other applications currently active, so it would be the priority in the process right now.
So it's the way we've got it laid out is workable for you? Sounds good.
Yeah, that's workable.
Do you have a comment that is there? Okay, I called the question. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Did I not call the question?
You did.
Yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate that these two are recommendations to the board together with that one, so nothing will be final until ratified by the board at the end of the month.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks for your help on this, appreciate it. Okay, that takes us to 11, director's notice of motion. And a motion to adjourn. Moved by Stark and second by Director. Adjourn. Thanks, everyone.